routine night patrol. The night began like any other, with my partner, a seasoned officer of 30, and I, a younger rookie at 25, embarking on our routine patrol through the quiet streets of Gallenberg. Gallenberg, a small town nestled in the hills, had its own unique charm and quirks. The streets were lined with quaint shops and cozy cafes, and the tight-knit community had a reputation for looking out for one another. As we cruised along, the dim glow of streetlights illuminating our path, my partner leaned over and spoke to me in a hushed tone, his voice carrying a sense of caution. "Keep your wits about you," he said, his eyes scanning the darkened hillsides. "This is hilly terrain, and we've had our fair share of run-ins with troublemakers who harbor a grudge against law enforcement. Stay alert." His words resonated with me as he recounted past encounters with criminals who had a vendetta against the police. It was a sobering reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows of our seemingly peaceful town. As we continued our patrol, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease lingering in the air, a silent reminder of the threats that lay just beyond the reach of our headlights. To lighten the mood, we cracked jokes and shared anecdotes, sipping on Coca-Cola to keep us alert and energized during the long night ahead. Despite the seriousness of our mission, we found moments of camaraderie and laughter, our banter serving as a welcome distraction from the tension that hung in the air. As we navigated the winding roads of Gallenberg, our laughter echoed through the quiet streets, a testament to the bond that united us as partners in law enforcement. As we pulled into a gas station to refuel our patrol cars, my partner, a seasoned officer of 30, reminded me of the suspicious activity reported in the area the week before. "Hey, keep an eye out," he said, nodding towards the surrounding. "We got a heads up about some shady stuff happening around here recently." Feeling a sense of caution, we proceeded with our tasks, refueling the patrol cars and grabbing a quick bite to eat. As we entered the gas station's shop, I noticed a group of towering figures loitering near the snack aisle. My partner caught my glance and whispered, "Ignore them for now. Let's try to de-escalate the situation and keep our distance." Despite the unsettling presence of the individuals, we focused on our tasks, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. However, the tension in the air was palpable, and I couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was brewing. As we moved through the shop, one of the figures caught my eye and flashed a chilling smile in my direction. It sent a shiver down my spine, the eerie grin hinting at something sinister beneath the surface. I exchanged a quick glance with my partner, and we both knew that this encounter was far from ordinary. Little did we know this unsettling encounter would soon escalate into a dangerous confrontation, testing our resolve in the face of danger. My partner and I stood a little farther from the gas station, our patrol cars parked nearby, as we chilled out during the last hours of our shift. The dim glow of the gas station's lights cast an eerie ambience around us, illuminating the figures of the sketchy guys who also stood a little distance away. At first, they appeared to be just friends, chatting casually amongst themselves. But then, suddenly, one of them snatched something from another and made a dash for a nearby car. The others quickly followed suit, jumping into their vehicles and speeding off into the night. Without hesitation, my partner and I sprang into action, our patrol cars roaring to life as we gave chase. The adrenaline surged through my veins as we raced through the dark, winding roads of Gallenberg, our headlights cutting through the night like a beacon of justice. The urgency of the situation was palpable as we pursued the suspects, determined to bring them to justice and ensure the safety of our town. As we pursued the suspects, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The winding roads led us deeper into the heart of the forest, far from the safety of the town's lights. The darkness seemed to swallow us whole, enveloping us in its inky embrace. The suspects were driving suspiciously, weaving through the roads as if trying to deceive us. Despite their attempts to shake us off their trail, my partner and I remained steadfast in our pursuit. Our focus was solely on the security of our town, and we were determined to apprehend these individuals no matter what. As we pressed on, the forest around us grew denser, the towering trees casting eerie shadows that danced in the glow of our headlights. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, adding to the sense of unease that settled over me. like a suffocating blanket. Despite the uncertainty of our surroundings and the relentless pursuit of the suspect, we pressed on, navigating the twists and turns of the forest roads with determination. Little did we know, our relentless pursuit would soon lead us into the heart of darkness, where the true dangers of the night awaited. It was then that we realized we had fallen into a trap. Even before the trap was sprung, I had a sinking feeling that something was amiss. I mentioned my concerns to my partner, but he reassured me, urging us to press on and fulfill our duty as officers of the law. As we continued down the dark forest roads, the feeling of unease only grew stronger. And then, it happened. We found ourselves surrounded, our patrol cars boxed in by other vehicles that had seemingly appeared out of nowhere. I glanced at my partner, his expression mirroring my own fear and uncertainty. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and completely at the mercy of our adversaries. Panic surged through me as I realized the gravity of our situation. The gang that had ensnared us wielded weapons of all kinds: baseball bats, revolvers, and an air of menacing confidence. I wasted no time in calling for backup, my fingers trembling as I punched in the distress signal. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. We were in over our heads, facing off against a dangerous foe with no backup in sight. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, we stood our ground, determined to fight tooth and nail for our survival. Amidst the chaos of the firefight, I seized a moment to assess our situation. I noticed that the suspects were hesitant to approach us directly, their movements cautious as if they were wary of something. Then it hit me, the large rifle we carried with us. Its imposing presence seemed to instill a sense of fear in our adversaries, keeping them at bay and giving us a small advantage in the desperate struggle. With this realization, I called out to my partner, urging him to keep the suspects at a distance while we awaited backup. We positioned ourselves strategically, using the cover of our patrol cars to shield us from incoming fire. The tension in the air was palpable, but we held our ground, determined to defend ourselves until reinforcements arrived. As the minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity, we continued to exchange gunfire with the suspects, our determination unwavering despite our injuries. And finally, just when it seemed like all hope was lost, the sound of approaching sirens shattered the silence, signaling the arrival of backup. With a sense of relief, we redoubled our efforts, knowing that help was at hand. The suspects, realizing that the odds were no longer in their favor, began to retreat, disappearing into the darkness as quickly as they had appeared. And as our fellow officers rushed to our aid, I couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude for their timely intervention, knowing that without their support, our desperate struggle could have ended much differently. Instantly, the dynamic of the confrontation shifted as our reinforcements engaged the suspects in a fierce firefight. The night erupted with the sounds of gunfire and shouting, the darkness punctuated by the flashing lights of police cars and the glow of muzzle flashes. As the chaos unfolded around us, I couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude towards our colleagues. They had come to our rescue in our darkest hour, risking their own lives to save ours. Their swift and decisive action bolstered our spirits, fueling our determination to overcome the odds stacked against us. Support arrived not only in the form of additional officers, but also medics who tended to our injuries with speed and precision. The tide of the battle began to turn in our favor, and the suspects, realizing they were outnumbered and outgunned, began to falter. In the ensuing chaos, some of the gangsters managed to flee into the night, their retreat a testament to the overwhelming force of our response. However, not all of them were so lucky. In the exchange of gunfire, several of the suspects were apprehended, and tragically, one of them succumbed to their injuries. As the dust settled and the adrenaline began to fade, a somber sense of relief washed over me. Though the ordeal had taken its toll, we had emerged victorious, thanks to the unwavering bravery and selflessness of our fellow officers. And as we regrouped to assess the aftermath, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of pride in the resilience of our team and the bonds that held us together in the face of adversity. Despite the pain throbbing in my bicep and the searing sensation in my leg from the gangster's bullets, I stood tall, knowing that alongside my partner, we had confronted danger head-on and emerged stronger for it.
There lay a desolate highway. It was a road seldom traveled, known only to those who dared to brave its eerie embrace. On this forsaken path, amidst the towering trees and the ominous silence, a lone truck driver found himself seeking refuge for the night. Jake, a seasoned trucker with weathered features and eyes that had seen too much, parked his rig at the edge of the forest. Exhausted from a long haul, he longed for nothing more than the comfort of his cabin's bunk. The darkness enveloped him as he settled in, the only illumination coming from the faint glow of the dashboard lights. As the night deepened, strange noises began to echo through the woods. Branches creaked and rustled, and the wind carried whispers that seemed to speak of ancient secrets. Jake dismissed them as mere tricks of the mind, attributing them to fatigue and the wild imagination of a weary traveler. But as the hours passed, the forest seemed to come alive with unseen presences. Shadows danced at the edge of Jake's vision, fleeting glimpses of something sinister lurking just beyond the reach of his headlights. Unease gnawed at him, a primal instinct warning him of unseen dangers. Then, in the dead of night, a blood-curdling scream pierced the stillness. Jake jolted awake, heart pounding in his chest. His hand instinctively reached for the switchblade tucked beneath his pillow as he scanned the darkness, searching for the source of the chilling cry. Outside, the forest whispered malevolent secrets, as if mocking Jake's futile attempts to unravel its mysteries. Every shadow seemed to hide a lurking horror, every rustle of leaves a harbinger of impending doom. With trembling hands, Jake reached for his radio, hoping to contact someone, anyone, for reassurance. But all he heard was static, a cacophony of white noise that offered no solace in the face of the encroaching darkness. Desperation clawed at Jake's mind as he realized he was truly alone, at the mercy of whatever malevolent force inhabited the forest. With no other option, he resolved to brave the unknown, to confront the terror that lurked beyond the safety of his cabin. Steeling himself, Jake stepped out into the night, his senses alert for any sign of danger. The forest loomed ominously around him, its ancient trees whispering tales of horror and despair. Each step forward felt like a descent into madness, a journey into the heart of darkness itself. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush shattered the silence, and Jake whirled around to face the unseen threat. But there was nothing there, only the endless expanse of the forest stretching out before him like a yawning abyss. As Jake pressed on, the darkness seemed to press in around him, suffocating him with its oppressive weight. Shadows danced at the edge of his vision, taunting him with their elusiveness. Fear coiled in his belly like a serpent, threatening to consume him whole. And then, just when Jake thought he could bear it no longer, he stumbled upon a clearing in the forest. In its center stood an ancient oak, its gnarled branches reaching for the heavens like accusing fingers. At its base lay a shallow grave, the earth freshly disturbed as if something had clawed its way free from its tomb. A chill ran down Jake's spine as he realized the truth. He was not alone in the forest. Something ancient and malevolent lurked in the shadows, watching his every move with hungry eyes. And as the first light of dawn illuminated the clearing, Jake knew that he would never escape the horrors that awaited him in the heart of the midnight highway. At the age of 20, weary from the grueling demands of a construction job in the city, I sought refuge in the quiet countryside of Texas. With only my faithful companion, Duke, a German shepherd, by my side, I ventured into this new phase of my life. The decision to leave behind the noise and chaos of urban life was not an easy one, but the promise of solitude and serenity beckoned me to the small house, nestled amidst the towering trees. As I arrived at the house, the owner greeted me with an air of suspicion, his eyes darting nervously as if he were afraid of something lurking within the shadows of the house. His demeanor sent a chill down my spine, but I brushed it off, attributing it to the quirks of an eccentric landlord. Life in the countryside followed a simple routine. After enduring long and exhausting shifts at the construction site, I would return home, seeking respite from the physical and mental toll of my laborious work. A hot bath to soothe my aching muscles, a humble dinner prepared for one, and ensuring Duke had his fill too. These mundane tasks formed the fabric of my daily existence. In the evenings, I would unwind by watching TV, letting the familiar glow of the screen wash away the stresses of the day. Despite the initial tranquility of my new abode, signs of unease began to surface. Most unsettling were the occurrences of other-worldly phenomena, a strange amalgamation of poltergeist activity that defied logical explanation. Objects would inexplicably move from their rightful places, doors would slam shut on their own accord, and eerie whispers seemed to emanate from the walls. Occasionally I would catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye or hear strange noises echoing through the empty rooms. But I dismissed these occurrences as mere figments of my imagination, refusing to acknowledge the growing sense of unease that gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. It was on a fateful night, much like any other. The clock had struck 10:20 p.m., and I had just finished my humble dinner. With the remnants of the meal still lingering on my plate, I settled down in front of the television, seeking solace in the comforting glow of the screen. Duke, ever vigilant, lay at my feet, his watchful eyes scanning the room for any signs of danger. As I immersed myself in the program playing on TV, a subtle shift in Duke's demeanor caught my attention. His ears perked up, and a low growl rumbled in his throat, his instincts honed in on something lurking in the shadows of the house. A chill ran down my spine as I followed his gaze, my heart quickening with a sense of foreboding. Despite Duke's sudden agitation, I attempted to dismiss his behavior as a mere product of his overactive imagination. With a soothing voice, I reassured him that there was nothing to fear, gently pacifying him as I returned my attention to the TV screen. Yet deep down, a gnawing sense of unease continued to claw at the edges of my consciousness, refusing to be ignored. As I tried to distract myself with the program playing on TV, the atmosphere in the room seemed to grow heavier, suffused with an ominous presence that I couldn't shake. The familiar comfort of the television's glow offered little solace against the creeping tendrils of fear that wrapped themselves around my heart. In the dim light of the living room, Duke's barks echoed through the house, his warning clear and urgent. Ignoring my attempts to pacify him, he remained fixated on something unseen at the top of the cupboard, his growls reverberating with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. Curiosity mingled with apprehension as I approached the cupboard, my eyes scanning the shadowed depths for any sign of movement. And there, perched atop the dusty surface, was the source of Duke's agitation, a doll, its porcelain features frozen in an unsettling semblance of a smile. A fraction of a grin played upon its lips, sending a shiver down my spine as I realized the truth. I was not alone in the house. With each passing moment, the oppressive weight of the doll's presence seemed to suffocate the room, its malevolent gaze fixed upon us with chilling intent. As the tension mounted, havoc erupted throughout the house. Objects shifted and fell, their movements erratic and unpredictable. Lights flickered on and off of their own accord, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. The cupboard creaked open, revealing its contents with a menacing creak, as if inviting us into its depths. In the midst of this chaos, Duke remained steadfast at my side, his protective instincts on high alert. Yet even his stalwart presence could not dispel the sense of dread that hung heavy in the air, tangible and suffocating. It was clear that we were not welcome in this house, that some malevolent force sought to drive us away with its sinister machinations. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone, dialing the number of the house's owner in a desperate bid for salvation. As I awaited rescue, Duke and I huddled together, seeking solace in each other's presence. When the headlights finally pierced the darkness, I felt a rush of relief wash over me, knowing that we would soon escape the clutches of that accursed house. Though I now reside in the safety of a new home, The memory of that harrowing night refuses to fade. The feeling of unseen eyes watching, the malevolent presence lurking in the shadows. It is a memory that will haunt me for the rest of my days. A stark reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the surface of seemingly tranquil surroundings. Welcome to Eerie Enigma Productions, where we unravel ghostly mysteries with a touch of humor. Subscribe now, or risk being possessed by a particularly sarcastic poltergeist. Don't say we didn't warn you. It was a crisp autumn morning when Mrs. Thompson, our teacher, entered the classroom with a twinkle in her eye. She unfolded a map of Whispering Pines, the remote town nestled amidst the rolling hills, and announced our upcoming school trip. The excitement in the room was palpable, as we imagined the adventures that awaited us in the wilderness. As we boarded the buses, the anticipation grew with each passing mile. We marveled at the changing scenery outside our windows, the vibrant hues of autumn leaves, the glistening streams, and the occasional glimpse of wildlife darting through the trees. Finally, the buses came to a stop in a serene clearing, and we tumbled out, eager to explore our temporary home. Under the watchful eyes of our teachers, we pitched our tents and gathered firewood for the evening. The scent of pine mingled with the aroma of cooking food as we assembled around the campfire. Mrs. Thompson outlined the rules for our stay, emphasizing the importance of sticking together and respecting the natural environment. As darkness descended, I caught sight of a shadowy figure across the river, a decrepit old cottage, its windows like dark eyes peering into the night. Ignoring the warnings of my friends, I felt a strange pull towards the abandoned building, curiosity overriding caution. Under the cover of night, a small group of us ventured into the forest, the moonlight guiding our way. The path to the bridge was shrouded in darkness, broken only by the occasional flicker of fireflies dancing in the night air. Each step brought us closer to the eerie unknown on the other side of the river. As we stepped into the darkness of the cottage, a chill gripped my heart, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. The air inside was thick with the musty scent of decay, and the floorboards groaned beneath our weight. Shadows danced in the dim candlelight, casting eerie shapes on the walls. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the darkness. A ghostly figure materialized before us, its form ethereal and translucent. My heart skipped a beat as I realized it was an old lady, her spectral form hanging from the rafters above, her eyes burning with a malevolent glow. "Leave this place," her voice echoed, a haunting whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "You trespass on sacred ground, and you shall face the consequences." Terror seized us, and we scrambled for the exit, the old lady's laughter echoing in our ears as we fled into the night. The memory of her spectral form, hanging ominously from the roof, would haunt my dreams for years to come. In a panic, we fled from the cottage, our hearts racing with fear. The night seemed to close in around us as we stumbled through the forest, the sound of our footsteps echoing in the darkness. With the help of a mysterious villager, we crossed the bridge to safety, the ghostly presence fading behind us. As we returned to camp, the events of the night replayed in my mind like a haunting melody. Though we had escaped the clutches of the ghost, the memory of our encounter would linger with us long after we had left Whispering Pines, a reminder of the mysteries that lurked in the darkness. Night. The clock ticks ominously as Sarah, 10, and her older brother, Mike, 13, sit on the couch, anxiously waiting for their mother to return from work. The house is shrouded in darkness, save for the dim glow of a single lamp. The atmosphere is thick with tension. Mike, trying to sound brave. "Don't worry, Sarah. Mom will be home soon." Sarah, trembling. "I am scared, Mike. What if something bad happens?" Mike, putting on a brave face. "Nothing's gonna happen. I'll protect you." Suddenly, the TV in the corner of the room crackles to life, startling both children. The screen flickers erratically before settling on a news broadcast. News anchor on TV, urgently. Breaking news. A dangerous criminal has escaped from the nearby prison. Authorities are urging residents to stay indoors and lock their doors. Mike's grip tightens on the remote as he quickly changes the channel, hoping to distract Sarah from the ominous news. Mike, trying to sound casual. "Just a power surge. Nothing to worry about." Sarah can't shake the feeling of unease as she glances nervously at the darkened windows. Sarah, whispering, "What if he comes here, Mike?" Before Mike can respond, their mother's voice comes from the hallway, speaking on the phone. Mother, from the hallway on the phone. Overheard, "Don't worry, kids, I'll be working late tonight. Just stay inside and keep safe." Mike exchanges a worried glance with Sarah, but he puts on a reassuring smile. Mike, to Sarah, "See? Mom said she'll be late. We're fine." But Sarah's fear lingers as she clutches her brother's hand tightly. Suddenly, a loud thud echoes from upstairs, causing both children to jump. Sarah, tears welling up. What was that? Mike, trying to stay calm. Probably just the wind. "Stay here, I'll go check it out." Mike cautiously makes his way up the creaky stairs, his heart pounding in his chest. He reaches the top and scans the dark hallway, his hand trembling as he reaches for the light switch. Click. Nothing happens. Mike, under his breath. Great. He continues down the hallway, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Suddenly, he hears a faint whisper coming from his parents' room. His blood runs cold as he slowly approaches the door. Mike, whispering, "Mom?" He pushes open the door, revealing an empty room bathed in moonlight. Relief washes over him until he hears the whisper again, louder this time. Whisper, sinister. "Mickey." Mike's heart races as he spins around, searching for the source of the voice. His eyes land on the closet door, which slowly creaks open on its own. Mike, swallowing hard. "Who's there?" No response. Mike cautiously inches closer to the closet, his hand trembling as he reaches for the handle. With a deep breath, he flings open the door, revealing nothing. Mike, confused. What the... Before he can react, a cold gust of wind rushes past him, extinguishing the candle on his bedside table. The room plunges into darkness, and Mike's heart races as he fumbles for his flashlight. Meanwhile, downstairs, Sarah sits huddled on the couch, her eyes wide with fear. She hears footsteps coming from the hallway and lets out a small whimper. Sarah, Mike's voice. "Is that you, Micah?" But the footsteps continue, growing louder and closer with each passing second. Sarah's breath catches in her throat as she clutches her stuffed bear tightly, praying for her brother to return. Back upstairs, Mike's flashlight flickers to life, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He cautiously makes his way back to his room, his heart pounding in his chest. As he reaches the top of the stairs, he freezes in his tracks. Standing at the bottom of the staircase is a figure cloaked in darkness, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Mike, voice trembling, "Who are you?" The figure doesn't respond, instead taking a step closer to Mike. Panic sets in as Mike turns and bolts down the hallway, his footsteps echoing in the darkness. Downstairs, Sarah's eyes widen in terror as she hears her brother's frantic footsteps approaching. She jumps up from the couch and rushes to the staircase, just as Mike comes hurtling down the stairs. Sarah, tears streaming down her face. "Mike, what's happening?" Mike, panting. "We have to get out of here, now!" Before they can react, the front door slams shut with a deafening bang, trapping them inside. Sarah lets out a blood-curdling scream as the lights flicker and dim, plunging the house into darkness once again. Mikey, grabbing Sarah's hand. "We have to stick together. We'll make it through this, I promise." But as they stand there huddled together in the darkness, they can't shake the feeling that they're not alone. And as the whispers grow louder and the shadows close in around them, they realize that the true horror has only just begun. As the night wears on, the whispers grow louder and more insistent, urging them to give in to their deepest fears. But Mike and Sarah refuse to surrender, clinging to each other as they face the horrors that lurk in the shadows. With every passing moment, the line between reality and nightmare blurs, and they realize that in order to survive, they must confront the darkness that dwells within their own hearts. Just as hope seems lost, the sound of police sirens pierces through the darkness, signaling the arrival of salvation. The front door bursts open, flooding the house with blinding light as officers rush in to rescue Mike and Sarah from the clutches of terror. Relief washes over them as they're escorted to safety, but the memory of that fateful night will haunt them forever, a reminder of the horrors that lurk in the shadows of their own home. Fade out. Of months in 2023, when my dad and I were having issues and I needed to move out. The actual renter of the apartment was facing personal problems, leading him to vacate the apartment. I'll just refer to him as my landlord for simplicity. The cabin, an entire unit rental, was paid on a month-to-month basis, which was ideal for my temporarily difficult situation. It had 2 floors, with a small kitchen, a decent-sized living space, and 1 bedroom that required climbing a small flight of stairs to access. There was a quirky hatch-type door leading to the upstairs bedroom. I had already been there for a month and had paid for the second month's rent. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road, surrounded by similarly sized cabin-type houses. One house appeared vacant, as I never saw any cars parked out front or lights on. I worked long 12-hour shifts, and when I got home I was completely exhausted, usually going straight to bed and watching TV until I fell asleep. This particular night was no different. I got home, made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a protein shake as my late-night dinner, then went to bed. I always made sure to shut the door in the floor every night. I find myself uncomfortable at night with the entrance to my bedroom open. Something about it makes me feel exposed or vulnerable. Though this door didn't have a lock, the cabin was designed for one person or a couple. I was watching TV in bed when I heard it. A voice from down below saying, "Who's up there?" Instantly, my heart stopped, and I shot up to an upright position. It sounded like it came from inside the house, but it could have also come from outside. I grabbed the TV remote to turn off the TV and crawled over to look at the circular window above the bed. I didn't see anyone outside, but it was very dark. I said, "Who's there?" The deafening silence that followed led me to get off the bed and put my hand on the handle to the door. I lifted the door and looked down the staircase. I actually said my dad's name, thinking maybe he had come over, but there was no response. I walked downstairs, extremely scared, and flicked on the first light switch I passed. The living room lit up as expected, but there was no one down there. I still chalked it up to someone from outside. I turned on the front outside light and looked out the windows, but there was no one in front. By this point, I was really confused. I turned off the living room light and climbed the stairs back to my bedroom, shutting the door in the floor. I was pretty awake now, so I turned the TV back on. Not even 5 minutes later, I heard pounds on the bedroom door from below. They sounded angry, or like they were trying to scare me. If there was any doubt before, this confirmed it. Someone was in the house. I left the TV on this time and just stayed completely motionless because I was genuinely too scared to move an inch. The scariest part was that whoever was down there could easily open the door as there was no lock. I lay silent for about 20 minutes, and once I felt comfortable enough to move, I looked for my phone. Of course, it wasn't on my nightstand. I couldn't find it. I may have left it downstairs, so I opened the door of my bedroom and looked down the stairs. With the constantly changing light from the TV screen, I could see just a little bit down the stairs to the living room, so I went down quietly. When at the bottom, instead of turning on any lights, I ran out the back door barefoot and went to the nearest neighbor's house, where I knew people lived and saw their lights were on. I knocked on the door a bunch of times, and then I noticed someone at the window next to the door looking at me. I didn't know how long they had been watching me. I yelled through the glass explaining what happened, that I'm their neighbor and that I need a phone to call the police. They definitely heard me, but they just stared at me. It was unsettling, and I started to back away from the door as I realized they weren't even responding to me, just creepily watching me. I looked around the road and saw no other houses in the distance with their lights on. Momentarily, I had a thought. What if that guy had something to do with it? I went back to my rental through the back door, which was closed just like I left it. I went inside, locked it, and turned on every light in the tiny house. I looked not only for an intruder, but my phone downstairs, and I finally found my phone in my car when I thought to look there. I was so tired earlier that I left it in the center console. I went back inside. The TV was still on in the bedroom. I climbed the stairs, and when I got to the top, I saw someone sitting on my bed staring at the TV. It was a man. I screamed, and he turned his head slowly to look at me. And before I could see anything else, I ran back down the stairs and outside. Now, with my phone, I called 911 and sat in my locked car watching the house. When a police car arrived, the officer checked the house and upstairs room after I told him that I saw someone, most likely the intruder, walk away into the woods. He asked if I had any other places to stay that night. So I swallowed my pride and went back to my dad's house for the night after packing some of my important stuff. I returned to the house the next day and stayed another night, then collected the rest of my stuff. Luckily, the landlord agreed to giving me some of my money back. He asked me what the man looked like, and after that, he didn't ask any more questions, which, to me, is pretty Sue's. Something was unusual in that situation, from that creepy neighbor ignoring me to the landlord's random urgent need to move out, to someone possibly watching, waiting, biding their time in the shadows. The pieces of the puzzle began to click into place with a chilling clarity that sent shivers down my spine. The creepy neighbor's unsettling behavior, the landlord's sudden urgency to vacate the premises, and now, the mysterious intruder who seemed to materialize out of thin air, all connected by a thread of malevolence that stretched back into the depths of the cabin's murky past. As I delved deeper into the history of the cabin, I uncovered whispers of dark deeds and unspeakable horrors that had plagued its walls for generations. Stories of restless spirits and vengeful entities that prowled the night, searching for unsuspecting victims to ensnare in their web of terror. But amidst the tales of woe and despair, one name stood out like a beacon of dread: the Shadow Man, a malevolent entity said to lurk in the darkest corners of the cabin, feeding on the fear of those foolish enough to cross its path. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I realized that I had unwittingly stumbled into the clutches of something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. And now, as the shadows lengthened and the darkness threatened to consume me whole, I knew that my only chance of survival lay in confronting the horrors that lurked within the heart of the cabin itself. Armed with nothing but my wits and a sense of impending doom, I resolved to uncover the truth behind the cabin's dark past and put an end to the reign of terror once and for all. But little did I know that in delving into the depths of darkness, I would awaken forces beyond my comprehension, unleashing a nightmare that would haunt me until the end of days. I never thought I'd end up here, assigned to this cursed watchtower in the middle of nowhere. They say it's haunted, that strange things happen here at night. But orders are orders, and duty calls, even when it sends shivers down your spine. As I trudge through the dense forest towards the watchtower, I can't shake the feeling of unease that gnaws at the pit of my stomach. The trees loom overhead like sea-land sentinels, their branches reaching out to snatch at the darkness. The only sound is the crunch of leaves beneath my boots and the distant hoot of an owl echoing through the night. I've heard countless stories and anecdotes about this tower from the veterans, whispers of unseen horrors and restless spirits that roam its halls. Some say they've seen shadowy figures lurking in the shadows, while others swear they've heard the agonized cries of the long dead. But I never truly believed them until now. So here I am, a young soldier in the military, facing down the unknown in the dead of night. The watchtower looms before me, its silhouette a stark reminder of the perils that await within. But I steel myself, pushing aside the fear that threatens to consume me. Whatever awaits me in that tower, I'll face it head on, like a true soldier should. The journey here was harrowing, to say the least. Trudging through the dense forest, each step felt like a march into the unknown. The closer I got to the watchtower, the heavier the air became, thick with anticipation and dread. And when I finally reached the foot of that towering monolith, I knew there was no turning back. Alone in this cramped cabin, the darkness presses in on all sides, suffocating in its intensity. I glance around, searching for some semblance of comfort in this desolate place. My eyes settle on the small stove in the corner, its faint glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. With trembling hands, I brew a cup of coffee, the warmth seeping into my chilled bones like a welcome embrace. Sitting in the dim light, I take slow sips of the steaming liquid, hoping to calm the anxiety that churns within me. The bitter taste is a stark contrast to the bitter fear that gnaws at my insides, but I cling to it nonetheless. With each swallow, I feel a small measure of control return, a fleeting respite from the relentless march of dread. Beside me, my weapon rests against the wall, a massive machine gun that fills the tiny space with its imposing presence. Its cold metal is a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk beyond these walls, but also a source of strength in this moment of uncertainty. Gripping it tightly, I take solace in its weight, knowing that it's the only thing standing between me and whatever horrors may come. As I scan the horizon with my night vision binoculars, I catch a glimpse of flickering lights in the distance. My heart skips a beat as I adjust the focus, trying to make out the shapes moving steadily towards me. At first, they're nothing more than distant shadows, obscured by the thick blanket of night. But as I continue to watch, the figures begin to take shape. 4 distinct forms emerge from the darkness, their movements deliberate and purposeful. They're too far away for me to make out any details, but the sight of them sends a shiver down my spine. As they draw nearer, I strain my eyes to see more clearly. It's then that I notice something unsettling about them. They're big, really big. Each figure towers over the others, their outlines bulked up by what appear to be heavy packs slung over their shoulders. And in their hands, glinting in the faint light, are unmistakable shapes of big guns. My blood runs cold as I realize the gravity of the situation. These aren't just ordinary travelers passing through the night. They're armed, they're dangerous, and they're headed straight for me. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I realize that whatever awaits me in the darkness ahead is far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. As the figures draw closer, my heart pounds in my chest, each beat echoing in the silence of the night. I grip my weapon tighter, my palms slick with sweat despite the chill in the air. With every step they take, the tension in the air grows thicker, suffocating in its intensity. I watch them closely, my breath catching in my throat as they approach. Their movements are slow and deliberate, their intentions obscured by the darkness that surrounds them. And yet, there's something about the way they move, something predatory, that sends a shiver down my spine. As they draw within range, I ready myself for the inevitable confrontation. But just as I'm about to make my move, something unexpected happens. The figures come to a sudden halt, their forms outlined against the backdrop of the night. For a moment, they stand perfectly still, like statues carved from the shadows themselves, and then, without warning, they vanish. One moment they're there, looming menacingly in the darkness, and the next they're gone, swallowed up by the night as if they were never there at all. I stare in disbelief at the spot where they once stood, my mind racing with questions. Where did they go? What were they planning? And most importantly, will they be back? As the seconds tick by, the silence of the night closes in around me, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. The sense of unease that had been building within me reaches its peak, leaving me feeling exposed and vulnerable in the darkness. With a sense of dread, I realize that this is far from over. Whatever those figures were, whatever their intentions may have been, they're still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And as I steel myself for the challenges that lie ahead, I can't help but wonder what other secrets this cursed watchtower holds, and what horrors await me in the nights to come. Stay tuned for the next installment, where the mystery deepens and the stakes grow ever higher. The nightmare is far from over.